from Harry as he shares something from one of his out to lunch columns. So here's Harry. So, hi everyone, it's me, Rudy Tinoco with Real Magic Magazine's Apocalypse Now, and I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, Harry Lorayne. Hi Harry, good morning. I'm glad to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you, Rudy.
So I'm really thrilled about this opportunity that I have to talk personally with you about some of the stories that you share throughout the pages of Apocalypse. Now, really quick, for those of you who don't have Apocalypse Magazine, you can get them in these 4 volumes, which, as I said in the last episode, all you need for the rest of your life to
All right.
these 4 volumes. There's enough magic in here for a lifetime or two.
True, 20 years worth. Good Lord.
Yeah. So if you don't have these books, you can get them from Harry. If you go to harrylorrainemagic.com, I believe they're in the form of PDF. And do you still have some of the actual volumes themselves?
I have only volumes 2 and 4 left. That's it. And I have a couple of the, good Lord, he made, he being the guy who did him originally, Lewis.
Yeah, because they're from L&L Publishing made these, right?
Publishing, right. And he did some, what they call deluxe collector's editions. You know, the last few, I'm going back quite a way, people were paying me $375, $400 for a copy of those deluxe issues. I said, fine, I don't want to. They were taking up space in my basement.
Oh, man. Well, I would say they're worth every penny. Again, these are a treasure.
Thank you.
And so I'm really thrilled to try to present these to the magic community just in the form of video. So I'm thrilled about that. And again, thank you for allowing me the permission to do that, Harry.
My pleasure, sir.
So one of the things I'm doing here is going through the books and, of course, learning the magic that is presented in them and then trying to teach them. But in the between each trick, or from now and again, you include a section called ellipses, or earlier on you had a section called razzle dazzle where you tell stories, and there was one that I found from 1978, so it's one of the first issues, really. And you titled the razzle dazzle section "A Happy Medium," and
right.
Something about you guys, you and Frank Garcia and Renee, in a séance, and I think when can you talk to us a little about what happened?
Oh boy, you're going back about 70 years, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of vague in my mind, but I know we laughed a lot, and I remember it. Frank Garcia is the one that talked me into it. He had this lady friend who thought she was a spiritualist and, did seances, etc. And he taught me and Renee to go with him to one of these seances, which we did. And then that particular room, what I remember, otherwise we couldn't have done it, when she went into a seance, she turned off the lights, or somebody turned off the lights, and it was completely pitch dark. In other words, if it wasn't pitch dark, we couldn't have done the stupid things we did, because Frank started it. He went under the table quietly. This is the part I remember. And he bent over so that his back was against the bottom of the table, and he lifted it. Everybody's hand was on the table. Everybody thought they were lifting it, So then I said, all right, let's play that game. So I got up, and I remember walking around, gently tapping, but blowing in ears, very gently. And these people, I guess that the people who were there, God, it seemed like a lot of people. That I visualize a table, but I can't tell you how many people were there, but it was quite a number of people. And it seems they were all what you'd call believers. They believed that there were spirits blowing in their ear and patting their shoulders and lifting the table. And the only way Renee got into it, she started to do this. She started to rap on the table. So that was it, but it was all over. Of course, I went back to my seat before the lights came back on, as did Frank, slowly lowering the table. And that was it. All the people, boy, they thought that the spirits had come. And you know what I do remember about it, because Renee used to keep telling me she was getting these phone calls. The lady that was running the seance, she thought for some reason, not Frank, not me, but that Renee was the magnet, the attraction of the spirits. So she kept calling Renee "Oh, please, you got to come and join us so we can get the spirits together." Of course, Renee, you never did it. And that was the end of that.
Wow. Now you and Frank you were friends at one time. Like I see you talking about him, mentioning him, in the magazine. So did things just kind of go sour?
It went a little sour. We knew each other since we were in short pants.
Ah,
But Frank started to do some things that I don't know if you want to go into it, although I did write about him in Apocalypse.
yeah, it's kind of
He,
interesting. You put it in here. Might as well share it.
well, he started to, it wasn't only with me. I remember David Roth saying to me, "Harry," this is years later after the thing we just talked about,
Ah,
say 25 years later or more. I don't know. I'm losing track of time, Rudy. Uh, David Roth said, "Harry, Frank took that trick of mine," and he mentioned a trick with a round cloth on the table with a coin. David did all coin stuff. And he said, anyway, Frank took that trick and he's doing it at lectures saying that it's his.
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And so I said, gee, I don't know what did you do anything about it? He said, yeah. I went over to Frank and I said, hey, Frank, you're doing my trick. And Frank said, so
Oh,
that
ouch.
was the story. God,
Oh, man.
I hate to think about it, but, and I don't know if you want to hear these things because then he did the same thing to me.
Oh.
I had come up, I don't even remember what I called it, but I did it for years. The best impromptu card linking effect, I called it.
Yeah, sure.
Where you folded a card
yeah.
and tore it so you had two half lengths, and then you folded each one of those and tore them so you had two frames, and then you linked them. Yeah. I was fooling the heck out of not only laymen, but magicians with this. And then the story is pretty clear in my mind. Frank said, oh, Harry, would you teach me that? And I did, And the next thing I hear, he's doing it at the lectures, just as David Roth had told me. And not only that, a friend of mine in Italy by the name of Tony Binarelli, he's a good magician. I spent a lot of time in Rome with him. But the reason I mentioned him, he was running a magic magazine at that time. And he was sending me issues. I get an issue, and it's the best impromptu card linking trick by Frank Garcia.
Oh, no.
Frank had given it to him as if it was his trick. So that started 10 or more, I don't know how many years of us not talking to each other.
Wow. Well, did you have the opportunity to confront him about it and give him the opportunity to?
First of all, I'm only 5'6". I was 5'6". Growing older, you lose weight. Can you believe this? Last time I was measured, I was 5'5". I lost an inch.
Wow.
I can't afford it. Anyway, the reason I mentioned it, he's tall. I'm not about to fight with him. I realized the kind of person he was. We used to spend so much time together. I mean, we would meet at Tannins. We'd go out, sit on a park bench, and talk for hours about magic and etc. And then he does things like that. The interesting thing is, and you will see it eventually in Apocalypse, when he passed away, even though we hadn't spoken for maybe 10 or 15 years, I wrote that the magic lights have dimmed a little with his passing.
Wow.
So.
Well, that was very kind of you, kind gesture in light of the
well, he was an important name, etc. He was the kind of guy. I did what you asked me before if I confronted him, and I did once because he started to write books at the same time, and he's using other people's material. And I said to him, I mean, you're not giving anybody any credit, etc. Because I had been accused of that, but I did it without knowing because I'm not a researcher. Well, that's what started the classic collection books.
Really? In what way?
It started because I started to find out basically with close-up card magic, which came out in 1962. And after it came out, a few people told me, Harry, that trick, and I forget which trick it is, that was so-and-so's original trick. I said, no, I didn't know.
Mm.
And I kept saying, 2 minds, I guess, because I don't remember taking it from anybody. But it ends up, it was somebody else's trick. Well, the book was already out. It was too late to do anything. So years later, I decided there is a way to solve this, at least the best I could. That's what started the classic collection. And the first thing I rewrote in there was close-up card magic, giving the credits that I had failed to give in the original.
Wow.
And I thought that would be it. Lorayne, the classic collection. Because if you look, when we're finished with this and you look at the 5 volumes, you'll note that volume 1 does not have volume 1 on it. I didn't realize that there would be more volumes.
Huh, that's interesting.
It was afterwards when people said, gee, Harry, this is terrific. You ought to do more. And I said, yeah, maybe I can give more credits that I hadn't given before. Well, then when I did the second one, I had to call it volume 2. But the first one, I didn't know I was going to do 5. I didn't know I was going to do 2. But that's what started it, was giving credits.
Wow.
That's what started the whole thing.
That's really, I had no idea. That's really,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm, as you'll see in these videos once they're edited, I really try to be intentional about crediting a particular move and stuff like that. But
yeah.
Think of all the books and the literature out there. It's hard to research every bloody thing. And
Right.
In this
Right.
age, maybe it's different. So I guess now it's a lot easier. But back then, in the 70s, you didn't have the World Wide Web and all that.
I didn't know how to research. I'm to this day, I don't know how to do it. It ended up, as I was doing Apocalypse, 2 people helped me with credits. Doug Edwards and Ken Krenzel, may rest in peace. They were good researchers, at least I think they were. And when I wasn't sure of something, I would call one or the other, and they would help me out with credits, because they knew much more than I did about the background and old books and things like that. Basically credits, which I just didn't know. But what's interesting here, and this is going to sound egotistical, but you know what I'm thinking? At my age, I don't care. I'll be. I tell it as it is. I had just as many people stealing my stuff as I stole from other people unknowingly.
Oh.
Because I don't mind giving credit. And a lot of the times when I use somebody else's trick, the people from whom I stole it, those that were still alive anyway, would say, Harry, you made it much better.
Well,
so fine, that made me feel better.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's an interesting story there with Frank, and it must have been hurtful to have somebody who you grew up with since you're a kid.
That's it. It was very hurtful. It was a loss. And as I say, I really felt that it was a loss to magic when he passed away.
Yeah.
And I said so. And a lot of people called me about that. They said, gee, Harry, that was great that you said that those magic lights have dimmed because of his death. Well, I really felt that way.
It must be difficult, the blessing and the curse of being as old as you are. I mean, really, Harry, you look great. The fact that you still have energy and you have creativity. Obviously, you're going to put out another ebook, but it must be difficult to outlive everyone. I mean, think of all these legends and these greats who you have unfortunately had to.
Boy, it's amazing. I don't know if you noticed or if you remember, if you have my book, And Finally, on page 186 or 183, I'm testing my memory, which is silly. I don't really care what page I put it on. But somebody started to talk about what you just mentioned, Rudy, about the people that I knew, the people that I hung out with all those years and decades ago. They said, you ought to put that. You ought to mention that, tell people about it. So I said, okay, and I started to write down that I didn't realize that I'm using pages and pages of names that I'm putting down. And so I put them in, And Finally, and I called it Pinpointing an Era, because it was an era, the people I knew, but there are 2 sections. The people I knew in magic, Dave Vernon, John Scarney, Francis Carlisle, Eddie Fechter, you name it, Bill Simon, etc. The second part of it are the people that I was fortunate enough to be friendly with. I only mentioned those that I at least once had dinner with, or we used to visit together, were people, non-magical people, but celebrity type people, names of people that everybody would recognize, like Johnny Carson, for
Yeah.
example, things like that, that I became friendly with. So there are two big sections pinpointing that era. Well, it's a long era. I've been around a long time.
Yeah. So with that, you you're 93.
Three.
What is
I can't believe it.
do you have a fear of dying as you age? And like my grandma, she's 97, and she's got a lot of energy still. And
Is
when
she functioning
yeah,
mentally? Yeah,
great. But
yeah.
when I say, Grandma, I hope you live to be 120, and she said, no, thank you. And I
I
think,
get it. I
yeah,
understand. I feel the same way.
don't you want another 30, 20 years?
Not if I have to go like the thing I went through just recently, Rudy, the operation. Which I'm still getting itching and pains from the scar. I got to tell you, if I knew what I was going to go through, I wouldn't have allowed it.
Wow.
So
But
no,
the alternative is not being like dying, and you would have chosen that
yeah.
over pain. Well, it must have been horrible.
Oh yeah, it was the worst time of my life. That the pain, silly things, getting out of the hospital bed to use what they called the potty. Oh God, cute words. That that I couldn't get back into the bed without getting all tangled in the sheets and the blankets and then it was. I know I wouldn't want to go through that.
So do you have a fear of death? I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you have we were talking about seances and spirits and all that stuff. Do you have any belief in the afterlife, or what do you think about
Not
that?
really. I personally don't. Years ago, when I was writing about it, I called it "Sweet Oblivion."
Hmm.
That's it. If I have to go through some of the pains I have now, if they got worse, it would make me think that way. I'd rather not feel those pains.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know that's kind of a heavy question to throw
Yeah.
at someone, but like, because I personally, my job is to speak to people about the hope of the afterlife. But guess what? As much as I talk
Oh,
about it,
that's right. I wasn't thinking about that.
yeah.
So I'm sorry to speak negatively.
No. Hey, everybody has their own faith and beliefs, and like I said,
Right.
as much as I talk to people about the afterlife and the hope of it, hey, I'm not in a hurry to get there. So,
Right. Right.